unless you're not prepared, but it doesn't matter because it's recording anyway.
Do
but we can always stop it and trash it if you want to. Or are we just rolling right in?
No, dude. I mean, if you've got a bit, you've got a bit.
I do.
So
okay, cool. Trying to think how to. Hey, well, the last episode we gave away our backlog breakdown awards, and there was one award that I forgot to hand out. I'm so sorry. I left the evening or the afternoon that we recorded with an award still in my knapsack. And so I don't know what a knapsack is. I don't carry a knapsack. Anyways, I still have one more award, and that goes to the best. Why can't I think? Oh, dang it. Words, man. I need it. I'm gonna have to start this all over. I'm so sorry.
you're gonna have to fix that one in post.
Yes. Okay, I'm gonna try this again. It's because I didn't play the intro. How about that? No, let's go ahead and roll into it. Okay. So last episode on the backlog breakdown, we had our 2023 awards, and I forgot to hand out an award. We left the recording, and I still had one sitting on my desk that I needed to hand out. So in lieu of that, I'd like to start this episode by giving the award for the best neckwear, and that goes to, oh, would you look at that? It's a tie. Welcome to another episode of the Backlog Breakdown. I am your host, Josh, and with me today...
That gets an F minus. F minus.
Hey, that's Nate, my co-host.
No, F minus.
And with us today, we also have good friend of the show. You were on just a few episodes ago, so welcome back, Mr. I guess, do we just go by Parker here? How do you want to be? All right,
I go Parker. With hey you too, whatever.
Money man Parker.
Yeah,
International man of mystery.
Awesome. Well, it's good having you, man. I'm stoked for our conversation as we're taking a look at the big three. The video game companies we're giving out, not awards this time. We're giving out report cards. We've got a lot to report on this
giving
episode.
Out grades.
Yeah. Let's see. School's out for summer, but we still have
I failed your
cards
joke
to report
and
on.
I may fail other things this episode.
Speaking of failures, let's just go ahead and roll right into the episode. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. So it has been.
It's all right.
A little bit since we talked last. Since we had our previous recording.
No, Joshua. Mm-hmm. Josh, you did that wrong.
Yeah,
you did it wrong. You are really like, dude. Like, I mean, I'd like to give you an A for effort, but it's like you're not even trying. So F minus.
F minus, not even F, not even a failure. It's an F minus. This is worse
F
than
minus. This is so bad, so bad. But I think what you meant to say is, it's been an undisclosed amount of time since I talked to you. I think that's what you meant to say.
No, didn't cross my mind.
I do not grade on a curve. So. F
wow!
minus.
So you're giving out all the school puns, man. You're just like
my wife is a teacher,
principal. So, yeah, there you go. Yeah. I like it.
And
so how have you been since the last we chatted?
Well, I think that since, I mean, now granted, it has been it's not been that like large a gap, but since Parker's our guest, I think it's okay to let him go first.
Be our guest.
So Parker, to you, my friend, I would like to know. I would like to know how it's been, or how it's been since we last spoke.
I don't know how to follow that up properly, so I won't even try. But
step into the madness, embrace it.
It's been good, I mean, if you can't, if you're only listening to the podcast, you're just not going to see the beautiful glory of the new mustache. I just have to say, I got challenged by some buddies at church to be part of the Cool Kids Club, and they had some pretty sweet stashes, and they challenged me to grow one. And so I have stepped up to the plate, and I've been working on growing this stash, and that's been by far the biggest, most important, all-consuming project since we last talked. So I'm happy to report that I do in fact have one. and my wife says it passes the you don't look like a pedophile test, so I don't have to shave it off. So everybody's really happy about that. And yeah,
Nice.
so
Like, yeah.
Passing grade there. Certainly
mhm.
didn't
That
fail.
that gets like it sounds like that probably gets like a B. I don't know if it's like passing with flying colors, but like you know, it sounds like it passes with like a B, which is good, but there's room for improvement. Yeah. Um, no, we were actually sort of like commenting about the fact that you have that mustache, and I actually said you mentioned the fact that I said something very similar to you, very much along the lines of what your wife said. I said like, dude, not everybody can grow a mustache. Most people they end up
Mhm.
looking like they sort of you know should be locked away for a
Mhm.
very long time. But yours does not look like child molestery at all, and
Mhm.
that's good. That's very
Or
good.
like
Like
Hitler. So,
or like Hitler.
yeah.
Yes, those are two mustaches that like there's a spectrum, and as long as you avoid those, like the
It's Charlie
mustache
Chaplin,
spectrum.
guys.
No, but yeah, man. Well, that's it is a nice mustache, you
Mhm.
know. It is.
Thank you.
It is. It's not quite like, like Burt Reynolds esque. It's like it's approaching that kind of like quality, like that. It was Burt Reynolds and who was the other one? Tom Selleck. They just
Yeah, Selleck.
phenomenal
Mhm.
mustaches. Like
Mm,
just like
mhm.
those maybe might be the two greatest mustaches in all time. You're not there, but like it's reminiscent. It's like it's
It's something to shoot
Selleck
for.
esque. It's
Yeah.
it's Reynolds esque. Where it's like I feel like that's a noble endeavor. You know,
Mhm.
so
Close enough. I'm good with that.
yeah, yeah.
I like it.
And it does give you a very like kind of like a little bit more of like just like kind of like a bit more presence. Like it's like I'm not just a man, but I'm a man with a mustache.
Mhm.
And
Hmm.
With a
it's like
good-looking
if you
mustache. Yeah.
a nice mustache, and if you're gonna talk
Yes.
trash about me, you're gonna do it to my face, specifically to my mustache.
That's
Um,
right.
Okay, so I have one more question before we move on. Is how do you feel about twirling the ends of the mustache? Because you don't have them twirled right now, but I'm curious.
Yeah, that's like, I don't know. I mean,
Hmm.
I could certainly do it. I just,
Hmm.
it's a question of like, can you do it in a way that's sort of like graceful, or do you immediately descend into the sort of like snidely whiplash kind of like,
Hmm.
evil
Hmm.
henchman kind of thing? And
Yeah.
I don't want to go that way too. So there's perils on
Hmm.
every side you got to be careful about. So,
I completely agree because for like there's a sense in which like when I see someone with like a really nice twirled mustache, there's a sense in which I'm like I respect because you can pull it off, but also how long did you spend in front of the mirror twirling your mustache to make it look like that with your wax and all that stuff, and like how much of are you just being a hipster doofus because of it? So it's like both. It's almost both and because yeah, I respect you can pull it off, but at the same time, like what all went into that, and was it really worth it? And maybe you're a little vain. Maybe.
like
I don't know.
your free trade organic Colombian
Mhm.
you know
That's true. I guess it depends in what context you see this mustache too. Because if it's at a
yeah.
coffee shop, oh no, yeah, you're just a hipster. But if I don't know. I don't know what if you're
If
rolling up
you're
in
a
a
well-dressed man of
three-piece suit.
business with like
Yes.
rocking a
Hmm.
nice stash, it's just
Yeah,
classy. It's just
that's true.
classy.
That's true.
Like
It's the man that makes the stash.
I've never
It's
been
not the other way around.
in a meeting or a business call with another man who's had a swirled mustache. I'm
Okay.
just going to throw that out there. So I have a
Okay.
hard time envisioning how that's going to look in a professional setting.
Yeah.
But the moment I see somebody do it is the moment I'll have a template to shoot for. So I'm going to
just
keep that
well,
in mind.
and what I'm gonna need you to do is just sneak a pic and send it to me. Um, so like when you're in that meeting, I just need you to be like click and just be like Nate needs to see this mustache.
Mhm.
I
Done.
have one more question, sort of about
Huh?
your follicles as well. So Josh brought up like mustache wax. Um, are you going to go in? Have you gotten any like product? And I asked that because like I just got um I've been buying beard oil and beard care products from the same guy for like the last like 10, 15 years. Like I
Oh, dang.
found the Grave Before Shave brand. Like I got some of his beard oil when I was like, no, I'm gonna grow a beard. I'm gonna try like grow a nice one, not just like the little like little guy that I used, because I used to do like the thin, sort of like close crop, like kind of like chin strappy kind of thing. Um, and then yeah, yeah, kind of what Josh has
My
going on.
facial hair.
But then I was like, no, I'm just like I can grow like a real beard, so I'm just gonna grow
Hmm.
like a real beard. And like when you go into that like next level, you do like beard oil becomes a necessity. Like beard balm becomes a necessity. Um, and so I was just like, have you purchased any like mustache wax? Are you thinking about it? And I am in no way sponsored by Grave Before Shave, but I have been very pleased with their products. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a fair question. I'm at that stage with it where it's grown in enough to where it really does feel like a really wiry, stiff, bristled brush, like right on my upper lip here. Like it's pretty coarse. I mean, it's
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
it's it feels like I've got like a nice coarse brush on my face. So I have thought, it might be nice to have something to just kind of smooth it out a little bit and just make it soft
Hmm.
and supple. But yeah, I haven't taken it to that level yet.
Hmm.
I
I
still don't
would,
know for sure if this is going to be like the new thing.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'm in test run mode right now. I
Hmm.
just
Well,
got past the like, I don't look like a pedophile. I can keep this thing for a little while phase. And so I haven't
yeah.
thought much further ahead than that. So
I
that's coming up
would
next.
say like maybe like yeah, invest in like a small little thing of like beard oil and just put like a drop on the hair or on the skin underneath or over your lip, and then um you know some maybe a little bit of mustache wax is actually going to give it that real coarse thing, but if you get like some like balm or something like that and just rub it in there, it's going to soften up the hairs. you know then the misses might like it better too.
Pro tip. Yeah. Good to
Yeah.
know.
I'm just saying. So um but yeah, what we have talked about, what's weird is like I did not foresee us talking like riffing for like 10 minutes on mustaches. I'm
Mm.
pleasantly surprised by that. But
Hmm.
and Joshua, um
Yes.
it's it has been an undisclosed amount of time since we last talked.
Hmm.
But like
Hmm.
there has dude, it's like the last couple of episodes you have just like been it's a whirlwind of activity with the Broccolos.
It's
And
true.
and I kind of
It's
love
true.
it, mostly because I'm just like I'm sort of seeing this all from the sidelines and I don't actually have to do anything.
Yeah.
Like I'm all about that. So,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So the major things that have happened since the last time we recorded, we finished purchasing the house. So we moved into our new house. Tons of people from the church helped us move in, which is awesome. We got it all knocked out in like the first half of the day. Just a few hours, which was super cool. But of course, me in my head, I'm like, yeah, I can. So long as that's done in the morning, then I've got all afternoon, and then we did something in the evening. Um, and I felt really dumb because it's like, no, once you get all your stuff in, like that's just the beginning. Like, yes, that's a big accomplishment, but then there's unpacking and setting things up and making everything livable. So that's an ongoing process. But really dig the house. It's pretty awesome. It is just like 7 or 8 blocks, a 12-minute walk from here to the church where I work, which is awesome. So yeah, no, it's pretty sweet. The other major thing that I assume that trying to get me to mention as well is the turn in the weather. So up to this week, basically, it's been a very warm winter for the area of Iowa that I'm in. It didn't. We only saw snow, I think, twice since we've been here. The month and a half that we've been here, and even then, it didn't stick around. It was like snow in the morning, and then it was melted by the end of the day. So, for Texan, it's still cold, but it's been warm, and I've actually gotten used to it to where it's like, oh yeah, 40 degrees outside. Like, no, it's not even that cold. So which is pretty awesome. So it's been warm up until this week. Now, and things have changed where we had this blizzard that's been going through the states, and it finally hit us here in Iowa. And so earlier this week we got about within a 24-hour period we got about 10 or 11 inches of snow. So that was fun. And I say that it actually was fun because this is all new and novel to my family, and so we're having fun in the snow. I don't know what I'm doing snow shoveling, but it's a lot of fun. And we've got people coming over helping us out with stuff, which is super cool too, because they know what to do. They're telling us all the stuff that we need to get, and to prep for things that are happening. So that happened. And a few days later, last night, snowed another like 5-ish inches, which is actually less than they had predicted. They predicted about 8, that it was going to be another bunch. So anyways, there's tons of snow outside, and then in the high for tomorrow is a high of 4 degrees. Now it's saying 2 degrees, 2 degrees Fahrenheit. And then after that, the high for the day right now, my WeatherBug app is saying -7 degrees Fahrenheit. And I don't know how to, I was going to say, I don't know how to feel about that. I can have feelings. I don't know what to think about that. Like, I just don't have any kind of comparison for that kind of cold. Yeah. So it's gonna be fun. We're gonna find out what that's like. So
yeah,
those are kind of that's what's been going on with me.
Yeah. I was, I mean, I was kind of hoping you would share the story about how like you kind of you and I were texting back and forth a little bit, and obviously, like, I just want you to share whatever you want to share. But then I was like, you're like, oh yeah, I had to clean my driveway,
Yes.
and my driveway is very long, and so I started shoveling it, and I was like, and I just said, you need to buy yourself a snowblower. It's time for big boy toys.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. Well, actually, while I was outside, so we had some friends come over with a snowblower and use it, and it's like, oh wow, that's awesome. That's pretty sweet. And then my wife, I don't know what she was looking at exactly, but when I came inside, she was like, those things are expensive. Like that's awesome. They knocked it out, but those things are expensive. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure they're pretty expensive. She was like, no, like they start off at like $700. I was like, huh, okay.
Some
I don't
of
know.
them do.
Yeah. She must have been looking at like some nice ones, but anyways, I don't know if she noticed what he had at the time. But we actually have a family at the church that owns a few properties here around town, and so they go and clean off the snow. They do driveways around here on like a major level, and they came this morning. They were just out, and they offered to come by, and it was in a full on, I don't even know what you call it. I guess just a snow plow, but one of those like one person kind of machines. I've seen it for dirt, and I guess you could do it either way.
Like a little,
But
like almost like a little skid, kind of like a Bobcat makes them. Makes a version of them. Yeah.
And that was pretty sweet also. Just comes in through the driveway and just pushes it all out of the way. So our driveway goes on the side of our house, and then we have a detached garage behind the house, like off to the side. So the driveway goes all the way along the side. So it's long, but it's not like, obviously it's right up against the house, but it's not right up against the house.
Was there a point when you were like shoveling, like, you had sort of a like a Will Ferrell and Anchorman kind of like when he's like, milk was a poor choice, like it was like, I've made a huge mistake here?
I mean, yes, but because we've had help, it has not been bad. It hasn't been at the driveway. It was actually after they left and they did the driveway, because I had pulled our van out of the driveway and put it on the side of the road, which you're not really supposed to do, but it was just while we were doing that. And so then the I don't know what you call it. Again, you probably know the right term, but like the snow pusher from the
The
city
the
comes
plow
down our
truck.
street. Yeah. Yeah. He
Mhm.
comes down our street. And so obviously, since I'm parked on the side, a minivan parked on the side,
He
it kind of
just
like
he
went
just pushed
around.
a big old wall right around
No,
you.
he actually didn't, which I was surprised, but I was
Oh,
just like, oh, I know that I'm not supposed to do that. He just kept his distance, and so after I pulled my van back in, then there's still like you can tell this part wasn't shoveled, so I started shoveling that, and towards the end of that, I'm like, I'm getting old, like this is
this is
annoying,
this is the worst.
and I'm doing this because I feel bad because like I don't know if I'm gonna get a ticket or something for parking on the side of the street, but anyways.
You just
Yeah,
you know
adventures
what?
in
You just say like they come and they like give you the ticket and you say I'm just a stupid Texan. I don't know
right,
what I'm
exactly.
doing. And
I don't know what I'm doing.
I don't know what I'm
What is
doing.
this white stuff on the ground? That's like feet high at this point.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. It's been fun
Cool.
getting used to what
Yeah.
winter feels like. How about you?
Yeah.
What you been up to, mate?
You know, like it's work. We're actually kind of
Yeah.
in the process of we're getting ready to put Byron in a daycare, which
Okay.
is
Okay.
we had avoided that. Like we had some like sitter kind of situations, and
Okay.
it just like we were gonna have to come to this point anyways. But like there's just been some stuff where it's like it's just better for us to do it now, you know,
Yeah. Gotcha.
versus later.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's stuff around that. But and so Saturday we got like it was like 6 or 7 inches of snow, and my
Yep.
mom came in, and my mom stayed with us for a few days this week to watch B, while Megan and I were at work.
Nice.
But um, so Saturday was kind of like rough as far as like weather goes, and then but Tuesday was like arguably the worst day. It was like and talking to some of the other carriers guys, it's like this is like maybe like bottom 3 days I've ever experienced in the post office. Um,
Oof.
it started out like sloppy with like sleet and like kind of
Okay.
like like just really sloppy, like bunch of crap coming down on the road, like there like Johnstown is a city. I throw that in up in scare quotes there. But that is just there's a lot of hills, and there were a lot of roads where it's like as I'm driving into work, I'm like, well, I'm not bringing the truck up this. Uh, I'm not bringing the mail truck up this road. I'm not
Yeah.
going up this way, and it's so there was like a lot of that, and then about halfway through the day, it started to warm up. But then we were it graduated from like sleet to freezing rain to just like cold rain, and it was just miserable, just
Ugh.
just the most disgusting day. Like I was so exhausted, and of course it's like the plant managed to find like every piece of junk they possibly. I swear, like I think it's intentional. I think that there's just a bunch of malicious actors up at the plant, and they hate us, and that's okay because I hate them back. Um, and one of these days it's just going to erupt into all-out warfare. The
Hmm.
carriers are going to descend on the plant, and it's just going to be the parking lot will run red. I don't know. It's like
Hmm.
it sounds dramatic, but it was just disgusting. It was just a disgusting day. Um,
Hmm.
but I mean, aside from that, it's getting cold. Like I'm
Yeah.
kind of like every once in a while, like we have this like kind of it's kind of nice, and I'm like, I might be able to sneak outside. I could probably go sit outside and have a cigar, and then I'm like, oh no, it's too cold. I don't want to do that. I need to
Hmm.
go get that heater thing that um, Megan was gonna get me for Christmas. So I need to
Ah.
go pick that out, and pick it up. But
Hmm.
but
That
yeah,
that reminds me, I did actually the day after it had snowed earlier, with the big snow, after I had shoveled some snow and I played with the kids for a little while. The kids went inside because they were cold, and I was like, I feel good because I had been shoveling snow, so I wasn't cold.
yeah.
So I did grab a cigar and I just kind of walked around, and then I ended up texting with another buddy of mine for a while and smoked a cigar outside, and it was really good. It was a lot of
Yeah.
fun. I don't know. It was from a random pack that I had, so I had no context for it, but it was a CAO cow. I don't know how to pronounce that. A
CAO.
Zocalo. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
It was good. I think I like getting into the darker ones, not the lighter ones. So, anyways,
Yeah.
it's fun.
We will at some point in time, like we can have a more in-depth conversation
That's
about
true.
cigars.
I shouldn't
what
just
I
bring
would
it up like that.
Well, I mean, what I would recommend with cigars is if you find one that you really like, keep the band.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
I mean, some guys
Or
keep the
for-
bands and then they throw them in jars and stuff, and they look kind of cool. But I just
Nice.
keep the bands of the ones that I really like.
I dig it.
So, but yeah, we should move on. We are here looking
Mhm.
at like, probably 20, 25 minutes ish of just mustache talk, weather talk, and mostly weather talk. And which is, I mean, that's fine. That's good. But we do have other things to talk about. There are other
That's true.
forms that must be observed.
Mhm.
We are a video game podcast, so at some point in time, we should probably talk about video games. But before
Oh,
we
yeah.
get into video games, we like to sort of talk about some other things that we're into. In fact, usually we have a list.
That's right. And later we're going to give out our report cards, but right now we're going to look into our backlog reports. And I have no Foley work for you this time. My report is digital, and so I don't have anything to put up again. But welcome to the backlog report. Hey,
No, that's terrible.
I like that.
failed.
But it's something. It's something.
No,
and
it's
so I
it's a
enjoyed it.
failure. I give my Foley work an F-.
Oh man, you're throwing out a lot of those. You certainly do not grade on a curve.
No,
But
this is pass or fail.
With that said, we'd just like to report on some of the stuff that we've been into since the last time that we recorded. So the first category that we usually jump into are books and or podcasts and audiobooks, things we've been listening to. So Parker, once again, be our guest. Have you been reading any good books lately, or what is it? That sounds like a lame joke. Yeah, so what you been reading? But anyways, do you have any books to report on?
No, nothing really at the moment.
Okay.
I mean, I've been dabbling in a few old Puritan books, which I think I
Nice.
mentioned on the last podcast, but I've been busy with a number of other things. So no, I haven't hit a ton in the book category lately.
Okay. Cool.
We're just going to judge you to your face. We're going to look at your mustache. We're going to look you in the mustache and be like, disappointing.
Brilliant.
Look you in the mustache. That is quite the expression. Okay. Well, funny enough, I listened to a book. Well, I first off, I do have to say, like, I totally understand being busy and not being able to. I, however, have wanted to, as I was looking at goals for the next year, I wanted to read more. And so I listened to this book on reading. It's called Recovering the Lost Art of Reading. It's by Leland Ryken and Glenda Faye Mathis. Now, I would say that this book was, it was generally good. There were a few things that kind of pulled me away from it. I do think it was a little too, I don't know the proper word. I think the authors hold books in higher esteem than I do, because they were pretty much saying, like, this is the absolute best pastime you can ever partake in, bar none, like, and here are all the reasons why. And, like, okay, I get it. I get it. You're writing a book on reading books. Like, yes, yeah, I understand. It just kind of came through a little bit too much to my liking. But it was a nice little overview of how to read different genres of books and why it's important to read and things like that. However, the other thing that took away from my enjoyment of the book, and I did, again, it was good. I still overall enjoyed it. But I listened to it on audiobook, and I think so it's a male author and a female author. And so there was a male audiobook narrator, and then a female reader. And I think the male reader was one of the worst, in my opinion, readers that I have ever heard for an audiobook. And it's not because he failed to read it. It's because his inflection was very plastic, if that makes sense. Like every sentence that he said, it sounded like he didn't. It all had the same kind of like intonation that sounded very fake, and it was hard for me. So he's extolling the virtues of reading books, and every sentence sounded very much like. But no, not that didn't sound right. You would have to listen to it, but it just grated on me the entire time that I was listening to it. So once again, it's neither here nor there. It's simply that there were a few things going against my listening of this book, even though overall, yeah, it wasn't bad. I cannot recommend the audiobook version because it was very difficult for me to get through it simply because of the narrator. The only other book that I've been dabbling on some more that I'd mentioned on the last episode, but another book that I finished, I'd started this one quite a while ago, but I was able to finish up just the other day. It's called The Pastor and Counseling. So it's just like the basics of counseling, of giving counseling based on scripture. And it's by Jeremy Pierre and Deepak Reju. And it was good. It was good. It was a very basic overview, but it was a good kind of like nuts and bolts. Like, here is how you are to do it. And, obviously base what you have to say on scripture. So it was a good book, especially for, my stage of life and where I'm at right now as a new pastor. So, yeah, that's what I've been reading. Nate,
Yeah.
do you have anything?
It's still kind of plugging away through the Fellowship of the Ring, and it's
Nice.
funny because I got a message from Porcho, and he was like, "Yeah, so I started listening to the Fellowship of the Ring as well, and it's the one that narrated by Andy Serkis." And he's like, and it's pretty good up until the point where Tom Bombadil comes and Andy Serkis starts singing, and I'm like,
Okay.
yeah, I struggled with that part, and it's just like because and it's not Andy Serkis's voice work. It's just the fact that Tom Bombadil like sings everything, and
yes.
it's maddening. So it's
hey Derry ho Derry.
Yeah, it's just like,
not?
oh, like I want to take a nice pick and jam it right in my ear.
Oh jeez.
Not really, but. And I kind of laughed because it was like, yeah, I kind of breathed a sigh of relief when I got to the other, like when I was like, we're done with Tom. Okay. Like, and then you go to the Barrow Whites and Tom comes back and you're just like, ah,
you again.
I thought I got rid of you and your stupid yellow boots. I hate everything. But it's the Fellowship of the Ring, and there's just like I just the other day was listening to that passage where Frodo, like the hobbits are talking to Aragorn, and there's this quote that it happens in that part of the book that I think is just phenomenal, where basically Frodo looks at Aragorn and says, I think a servant of the enemy would seem fairer and feel fouler. And Aragorn kind of makes a joke and says, are you saying, like, basically says, like, you're saying I'm not pretty. And, it's like, or he basically says, like, yeah, I do look like a little bit of a rascal, don't I? Or something like that. And it's like, it was like fun and kind of like there was a charm and a humor there. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's a great quote.
Nice.
But based on sort of last episode, you brought up a book that you had listened to called Digital Liturgies. I'm about halfway through. I think it's pretty interesting, and I can definitely see, like you said, one of the things that you kind of critiqued was that like he doesn't really have any like practical outworkings.
Right.
Like he doesn't sort of like, he doesn't button it up neatly at the end and say like, here are the practices that we can do. And I that could be a weakness, but I also sort of see like, I think like it's just as a general rule, as he's talking, or as he's writing the book, a lot of times I think like the answers are there. Like he's like, stop being so. He's not saying completely abstain from the internet. He's like, but we need
Right.
to. He's like,
Right.
start living in the real world, and start pursuing wisdom and things like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it's not like it would probably be a little more helpful to have something at the end and say like, here are some resources for how you can sort of untangle yourself from your phone or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't like not doing that, but otherwise I think it's a really interesting sort of bit of work on just like the fact that like he's like, he kind of, and he references Jamie Smith's book, You Are What You Worship, or You Are What You Love,
Right.
or
Yep.
um, a
Yeah.
good bit.
James K. A. Smith. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he also like anybody who the author of Infinite Jest. I'm blanking on the name right now.
Mm.
The daggone it, he's like one of the great authors. Um,
David Foster Wallace.
DFW, yeah, David Foster Wallace. Like he references David Foster Wallace a lot, which I'm like, okay, like that's kind of like some of it's not bad, but I do think like it's interesting that he's like kind of like pulling some strings and saying like, no, this is like the way the internet is working on us is more of a liturgical experience than um it's just like, and it's changing the way that we think and everything else. I thought that was,
Yeah.
and some of it's like duh, but also some of it's like, no, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So digital liturgies, yeah, I'm enjoying that. We haven't
I'm
started
glad.
yet, but we bought a book called Hebrews and You by Michael Kruger. Um,
Okay.
and it's basically sort of a walk through Hebrews. We're going to start using that for family worship. So moving forward, I will hopefully have some things to say about that book. I mean, Kruger's,
That's
I
awesome.
mean, he's
Yeah.
pretty solid. So, and then it's not really an audio book or a podcast, or it's not a book or anything, but within the last couple of weeks, I've been listening a lot to. It was a band that I wasn't really into a lot at all, but I've been
Okay.
listening to Rise Against.
Okay.
Because
Nice.
like I just like it was like I listened to a lot of the bands, like that was like my era of music, and like I
Okay.
knew who Rise Against was, but like at the same time, like it was like I had the Murphys, I had like No Effects, I had my other, like I had my staples. Like there wasn't a lot of like other stuff getting like thrown in the mix, and I've been listening,
Sure.
and like I really love their sound. Like
Mm-hmm.
ideologically, like some lyrically, I'm kind of like, not great, but like they have like it's like it's kind of West Coasty, but it's got like some of the cleaner, crisper sort of like um tones that like West Coast
Mm-hmm.
punk, pop punk, whatever you want, like has, but it's like it's got like a little. Also, there's some edge to it, and I don't know. I like their sound a lot. Like there's a couple songs I was
Nice.
listening to, and the riffs were going through, and I was like, oh, that is nasty. I love that. Like so, I
Nice.
would not
The
recommend Rise Against unless you really like that style of music. Um, but I thought they had a cool sound, and I've been like kind of
That's
like
cool.
digging their sound. So
Nice. The lead pastor of the church where I work, he likes Rise Against a lot too. So it's funny you mentioned him because I was listening to him a bit just because of that. And
dude,
dude's got a killer voice, man. I
dude,
love
they just
how
have, yeah, great
gravelly and
voice. He's
yeah.
got like he has like the right amount of like gravel or rasp or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
He's doesn't have like a killer range or anything, but like
Right. Yeah.
and the guitar, like the guitars and everything they do is just like it's like this. It's kind of like they dirty it up because it's like punk rock ish,
Mhm.
right? But it's also like got these like really like kind of like punchy clean tones sometimes where I'm like, how do you do that? How do you
Mhm.
make that sound? Because anyways, I don't want to get, but yeah, that's cool. I'm
Nice.
kind of like, oh dude, like I was like, and my buddy Jeremy, we were talking a little about it. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, I love a lot of their stuff. He's like, their lyrics kind of suck for a lot of songs. He's like, but their sound is awesome. And I was like, yeah. So anyways,
Nice.
so
All right.
That's what I've been listening to lately.
Awesome.
What have you been watching,
Awesome.
gentlemen? Parker, what have you watched anything interesting? You said you haven't read anything interesting.
I'm going to keep with the theme of great mustaches, and I'm going to say I watched an old Charlie Chaplin movie called City Lights.
Oh,
And
wow.
I mean, we're talking like old, as in this is probably like early 1930s, like still silent, like people aren't talking yet, kind of old. And the movie's great. It's just got like Chaplin sort of like slapstick and humor and just zaniness like at its finest. And so, I actually watched it with my family when they were in town and wasn't sure how they would like it. I used to be a bit of a film snob back in the day, so I could
Okay.
sit and watch a silent movie and it's like no big deal for me. But the rest of my family, they may not be along for the ride. So
Sure.
I tested it out with them and they were just hooked right away because it's such a visual film, and because you can't really multitask. Like that's the other thing with a silent film. You can't be looking at your phone and watching a silent film. It just doesn't work. So in that way, it's so visual and it kind of commands your attention in that way that it just like had them sort of hooked like right from the beginning and they were laughing and there's just some really great historic scenes. There's a great boxing scene where he gets into this kind of like underground boxing ring and he starts boxing this guy, but then the ref gets into the middle of it and then they're fighting with the ref and there's all this kind of crazy zany Chaplin-esque humor going on. It's just a phenomenal movie. So if you ever get a chance and you want to watch a silent movie, but like a really good one, that kind of like typifies like the best of the breed for that, I would recommend Chaplin's City Lights.
Nice. I'll have to check that one out. That's awesome. That's awesome. Now to the other end of the spectrum here, I dipped my toes in. I don't even think I finished the first episode of it, but on Netflix, I didn't know it had been released. So when I saw it, I was like, yeah, I'll go ahead and start it. And then I fell asleep probably like 20 minutes into it. But Yu
Is
Yu
that
Hakusho.
because it was not good or just because
No, it's because I was really tired. Yeah. No, I was actually surprised at how much. Okay, so Yu Yu Hakusho is this manga anime. Okay, it's a fighting anime. I watched the anime all the way through, and I really enjoyed it. But it's one of those like battle anime. So how do you do that live action? On paper, that doesn't sound like it would work. And I didn't really get to that. It was all just kind of set up, but I was really impressed with the way that it was pulled off. If you've seen any of it, the main character dies in the first episode. It's not a spoiler because then Yu Yu Hakusho, I believe, means spirit detective. I could be wrong on that, but he becomes a spirit detective. And the scene where he dies is pretty graphic in the show, which I was really surprised. He gets hit by a car and you see his body just like rolling around. And I was like, whoa, that was pretty intense. Anyway, so I enjoyed what I watched, but I didn't watch very much of it. So I'm gonna see if I can go back to it and not fall asleep again. But also, like you mentioned, Parker, with shows that are in other languages are not good multitasking shows. You have to pay attention because you have to read the subtitles in order to know what's going on. So, anyways, that's Yu Yu Hakusho live action on Netflix. The other movie that I watched with my wife just the other night that I really enjoyed, it's called The Holdovers. I say I really enjoyed it. Okay, it's rated R, so there's lots of language in it. But it's filmed in such a way that it looks like it takes place in the 70s at a boarding school for boys. And the whole premise is basically it's Christmas break. And so there's only a few people that stay at the boarding school, this teacher, a couple kids, and the head of like the line cooks that are there, that cooks. She's there as well. And it's basically, man, I'm having a hard time even describing it. But it's a little bit of a slow burn because it's a longer movie, but it's really about digging into what's going on in each of these characters' lives. And basically by the end of it, you see like all the stuff that each of the characters are going through and why they act the way they do. And so it just kind of not unravels, but sort of, as it goes into this character piece. And I thought it was really good. If you don't like those kinds of movies that take their time, that are more subtle, that are not like big on plot, but are big on characters, then you probably won't like this movie. Like 10 years ago, I don't know if I would have liked this movie very much. But we really enjoyed it. I say that there is a piece of plot, like some movies like that just kind of go on and nothing happens. And it's just like, oh, I learned more about these characters. But there is a definitive like third act. Something happens at the very end, which like halfway into the movie, I wasn't sure if that's where it was going to go. And it did. And I thought it ended very well as well. So it was very satisfying as well. So if you're interested, I really enjoyed it. However, it is rated R. There's lots of language. But The Holdovers, I believe it's streaming on Peacock. But yeah, I enjoyed it. How about you, Nate?
Yep. Is that the one that Paul Giamatti is in?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. When he's got a lazy eye.
I've seen trailers for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks, interesting. Kind of like, yeah.
If you're in the mood for a slow burn, yeah.
So we started out pretty high. You kind of, you dipped us a little bit with Yu Yu Hakusho, and then you brought it back up. You classed it up again with The Holdovers. I'm just going to run us straight into the gutter. I have just been weeb trash lately. I haven't been watching anything substantial. What I have been, well, I won't say that. I finished that Pluto on Netflix, and
okay,
it's very good.
Okay.
It is it is. So I was watching it yesterday, and Megan was home, and I'm sitting on the couch watching it, and she, like, I was kind of like very invested watching it, and like I was like, there was visible discomfort in my face, or it looked like I was like watching the movie and I was reacting to it, and she thought like I was like frustrated with her or with something else. And I was like, no, I'm watching this show and it's doing something to me. Like I'm kind of like not happy about the circumstances that are going on in this show. It's very, very good. It's a really interesting sort of take on sort of that again, an Astro Boy storyline, and
yeah, that's right.
Like a retelling of that. So it's very good. And it just like, I think too, like it's pretty wild that a really phenomenal piece of animation like that found its home on Netflix. It's definitely one of those things that if it ever comes out on any sort of like physical Blu-ray or anything like that, I will probably try and pick it up because I think it's something pretty special. I also, one of the other ones that I've kind of been hearing about, like, because like, and and again, that's, I sort of talked about how like Netflix is kind of making a name for itself in animation right now. But I had heard things that like this show called The Blue-Eyed Samurai, which is also on Netflix. And it's kind of an anime, but it's like one of the ones that's done in sort of that like it's kind of like computer rendered kind of thing. I don't know. It's got like it's not traditionally cell style animated. Like it's
okay,
like where Pluto like very much looks like cell style animation, like very high quality cell style animation. Blue-Eyed Samurai has kind of like just that newer kind of like if you watched the Ultraman cartoon thing that Netflix did, it's kind of like that style. Gotcha. Which is when it's done well, it's really good. It's better than that in my opinion. It is very, it makes no bones. Like, like the thing is like Pluto is like TV PG. Blue-Eyed Samurai is is TVR, maybe even
Oh, wow.
TVM. It's like lots of guts, well, not guts, but like
Okay.
blood, just fountains of blood at times. Um, very kind of strong themes. There has been some nudity already in it, which
Mm.
I'm kind of like, it made sense in the context, but it's like a little squishy there. Like I'm like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
If they continue to press into that, it might be enough for me to dip out. But if it's just like, we'll see. Like I'm the jury's still out on it. You know, it's not explicit, graphic, nasty nudity. Um, so uh,
Not to ruin it
yeah.
for you, Nate, but I have heard from other sources that there's quite a bit of both male and female in that one. So just buckle up.
Oh,
Well,
no.
and if that's because like the story is compelling, and that's the thing is like from the first episode, it's like it's a revenge story, and it's like, and anyways, so if I drop like if it does get like really gross and whatever, and I dip out, like I'll let you guys know. But yeah, been watching that, and then it's something that's like just a little more standard fare, but it's just like it is so much fun, and it's got really it doesn't really have like this amazing style to it. It looks kind of like in some ways like generic anime designed characters. Uh,
Hmm.
but it's like got really great color. It's Zom 100, the which is like basically, and the only I had started this, and the only reason I went back to it is because I was listening to the final episode of Talk TRG, and Logan brought up the fact that like he read through the manga or whatever, he was reading the manga, and I was like, well, I haven't. And he was like, and the other reason he did that was because like the show has been kind of inconsistent. But I was like, I like that first episode. Like I'll go back and I'll watch it, and it's fun. It's like it's kind of like it could be really gross and gory because it's about a zombie apocalypse, but like all of the red is like splashes of like neon blues and yellows and like so instead of like the
Hmm.
zombies being like these gross red and black and decaying things, there's like splashes of like just fluorescent stuff. And I think like there's something about like that like in the design aesthetic that I just really like. And it's it's kind of like it's not the so far the character sort of like lineup isn't anything amazing. You've kind of got like the dumb happy go lucky like devil may care kind of protagonist, and you've got like uh, a funny kind of just like bizarre goofball sidekick. You know what I'm saying? Like the like normal tropes are kind of just popping up, and it's like, but it's a fun for now. It's a fun little romp. So it's like,
Cool.
but
Nice.
so yeah, that's what I've been watching. Like I said, nothing serious. Like I just jumped straight into weeb trash. I was like, like I'm gonna make this thing gross. Um, so yeah, but
Nice.
how about what have you guys been playing lately, Parker? Like you and I have talked a little bit about this, but what's on your sort of like gaming agenda here recently?
So I played too many games in 2023, and
Okay.
to start the new year here, I'm actually taking January off of games. So I'm kind of doing a bit of a games fast,
Hmm.
reclaiming a lot of that time just to be in prayer, in the Word, and kind of just refocusing and reprioritizing. Um, I do play a little bit of like, if somebody says, hey, like, let's hop on and play for a little bit, I'm not opposed to that. I'm not trying to be like a rigid aesthetic about it or anything. So I've played actually with your brother, Nate. He and I played a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of Monster Hunter Rise, and I'll hop on and do like, I like to use Ring Fit Adventure for like a workout. So I don't really count that as a video game. That's more of a workout, like a gamified workout than a video game. So I
Yeah.
give myself a free pass with stuff like that. But no, I've just been taking the month off. It's been really good, really refreshing, and I've just been using the time to be in the Word and in prayer, and just kind of starting 2024 fresh. And I think the games that I do play this year, I'll probably be a little more focused on like it's going to have to be something I really want to play. Versus last year, I just tried to play everything because it felt like everything was coming out. So
Yeah.
I'm going to try to avoid that this year and just be more focused. So
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. No,
awesome. That's awesome.
and that's that actually, in talking to you about that, that's probably what I'm going to be doing in February, is sort of something very similar. So, um, but yeah, Josh, how about you? What have you been playing?
Basically nothing. The funny thing is, the only thing that I have played is what you mentioned, Parker, Ring Fit Adventure. Like that's the only thing, which I'm kind of surprised that my kids have not asked me to play more Mario Wonder. But in the move and all that stuff, they've actually been getting into Ring Fit Adventure, which is really funny to me. But they really enjoy it, and because I don't really consider it much of a video game, like when they wake up in the morning, they'll ask if they can play the exercising game, is what they call it, and I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, it's not normally we don't let them have screen time in the morning like that, but because it's exercise, like, yeah, go
Yeah.
for it.
yeah,
So really, that's all. There's been so much, setting up the house and doing all that stuff, that I really have not sat down and
You've
played
been
any video
playing real
games.
life, the game. The graphics are
Yes.
awesome. The
Yeah.
gameplay is terrible.
moving out, isn't that a game where you're like moving
It-
boxes and stuff?
that's
That's cool.
true. That's one I think of, like, if there's
Unpacking.
yeah. If there's a power wash simulator, there's got to be like snow shoveling simulator, right? Something like that.
There's
Um,
a lawn mowing
Definitely.
simulator. I'm sure there's some
yeah,
sort of like,
yeah,
snow plow,
there's
you
got to
know.
be. But
So,
yeah, not the case, not the case for me. So really, that's it. I'm still, as far as the beatdown goes, absolutely nothing, because I haven't finished anything. I also haven't purchased anything, so that's good.
mhm.
2 weeks in, but here we are. How about you, Nate? What you been playing?
Um, so the last couple of weeks, and part of it has just been like, this year. One of the things I want to do is, I want to play some of the stuff that I bought last year. So I'm going to be targeting Spider-Man 2. I'm going to
Yes.
be targeting Final
Okay.
Fantasy
Okay.
16. We've got some games for the podcast that I sort of need to put on the burner, as well. But I've just kind of been like screwing around. Um, Coming off a Sea of Stars, I did fire up the Messenger, and I've kind of been playing that. And now I know what happens with it.
Okay.
I know that like it kind of
Yeah.
becomes basically a Metroidvania at a certain point. What I'm
Mhm.
going to say is, like, getting to that part is tough. Like,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
an old school like Ninja Gaiden-esque kind of platformer, and some of those sequences I'm just like, whoa, and there's a lot of really cool like movement in it. It's a lot of fun. They kind of introduce new upgrades every couple of levels. But yeah, I just was like, it's good. I might kind of save it to come back to it, in March when I'm done, and just
Okay.
maybe you play that as part of like sort of a Metroidvania March kind of purge.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I've been playing around with that. It's really good, but it is kind of tough. Um, I've also been fooling around with Indivisible, which is
Okay. Yeah. Isn't it
uh
the Valkyrie profile esque one?
yeah, it is. It's got like some like platforming and sort of like some Metroidvania sort of like gatekeeping, like, oh, you need this ability kind of thing. Um,
Okay.
it's a really interesting game. Really, uh, really nice, really solid design, really beautiful colors. Uh, Gameplay is pretty tight. Parker and I were talking a little bit about it because he had played it, and I definitely can, like, I'm not quite there, but I can definitely sort of feel like this is a game that could probably very easily overstay its welcome. Um, because while the gameplay is really good, like, it gets to be a bit much too. Like, there's like, you have to
Hmm.
learn this kind of jump and then this thing to do the wall traversal, and it's like, I'm just like, oh, it just, this feels like a bit much, or it could
Gotcha.
become a bit much very, very quickly.
Hmm.
But I'm in it. I'm enjoying it. It's got that Valkyrie profile, sort of like, button prompt stuff. It's good.
Hmm.
I'm kind of digging it. I do want to probably cross that one off the list before the end of the month. I've also, as well as like one of the things that I just want to circle back and just hit Diablo 4, finish out the seasonal content, and be done with that. I've got like a week
Gotcha.
or two for that to deal with that. But I've been, one of the other things is like I want to shore up some like weak spots that I have in sort of like my gaming cred. And I,
Mhm.
for the longest time, avoided a lot of first person shooters like COD and Battlefront and
Sure.
or
Yeah.
Battlefield, like all of it. Like I was like, I liked a few of them, but
Mhm.
I I didn't like them as a general rule. So I'm kind of like I've 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 decided that this year I'd like to, and none of them are long games. Like, you know, none of the CODs have like really lengthy campaigns. Battlefield doesn't have like this massive like 20-hour, 30-hour story. So I'm just kind of like playing through the campaign, and I've got the Call of Duty Modern Warfare remaster. And I've
Okay.
heard that the original Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2 are probably some of the best. Like they're like kind of like they lay the ground for just like what COD like would become. And then eventually like I actually have Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, which I've heard is maybe one of the best campaigns in the series. So my goal is to like get through all of those, but I've been playing remaster, and I'm I'm just not, it's fine.
Yeah.
Um I don't see what people like about it, honestly. Like I'm probably about halfway through the campaign, and I'm just frustrated sometimes because it's like, listen, what I'm going to tell you, like, just say is like, and maybe this is just like a design problem of that era. There should not be monster closets in a tactical first person shooter. Like,
Mm.
if I'm trying to clear a building, you don't just keep like having dudes spawn into that building. Like, no, no. No, if I'm trying to clear the building so me and my squad can inhabit it, it's not just like, oh, I emptied this room. I sort of like walk back out into the hallway, and now there's a dude in that room again shooting me in the back. Like, what? No. um, but I'm gonna get through it. But
Hmm.
yeah, I'm gonna just, because it's not long. It's a few
No, yeah, it's a
hours.
short
It's
game.
like
Yeah.
6-7 hours, and maybe
Oh,
I'll
okay.
kind of like change my mind. I've just had several moments where I've just been like, this is. There's this like right towards the beginning. There's this sequence where you have to escape this sinking ship, and for whatever
Mhm.
reason, like I was like trying to run up this catwalk like 5 times, and it was just like, and I'm sprinting the whole time. Like as soon as he starts slowing down, I hit the sprint button again. I'm like sprint, sprint, sprint. And you're like, and this thing falls out, and it just bonk, you're dead. And I'm going like, why? Like I'm moving as fast as I can along this catwalk. It's like you're too slow. And I'm like,
Huh.
so there's just things like that that just kind of make me a little crazy. But yeah, as far as like, I did beat Beyond Eyes, which like
Okay.
it was cute. It's kind of sad. Like listen, anytime an animal dies, and spoiler, sorry, none of you guys are gonna play this thing. Um,
Old Yeller?
the kitty dies,
Oh no.
and but I don't know. It's a cute, it's a cute story. Like it's like I wrote a review for it on GG, and it's basically sort of falls in the same camp as Abzu. If you already own it,
Okay.
play through it. It's interesting. It's kind
Mhm.
of like an interesting idea. It's pretty decent execution. It's not going to blow your mind, but it's worth like the 2 or 3, maybe 4 hours that it'll take. It's like, oh, this is
Okay.
interesting. Um,
Was
and
the
then
cat named Beyond?
no,
No? Okay, because
no,
I thought that gave it away. Beyond dies.
no. Nah, you're terrible. That's
Yeah.
horrible. Yes, shake your head disapprovingly, Parker. You know, leverage the full majesty of that mustache and just let Josh know that it was poorly done. I did, however,
Awesome.
Tunic was on sale for like, and it wasn't like a massive sale, but I had been eyeballing Tunic for, basically as soon as it came onto the PlayStation. So I was like, I used a little bit of that credit that my wife had given me, and I picked
Okay.
up Tunic. So I am
That game's really
sitting.
hard, Nate, by the way. It looks cute and fun, but it will kick your butt.
Oh
Just be
no,
warned.
no, I know that it's like
Mm.
it's like one of those things where it's just like, oh, I'm going to grind you into the dirt, and I'm like, okay, okay.
Nice.
I know that I'm going to have to come at it like like I'm going to have to be ready for it, but it's like it's definitely one of those games I'm like I want to check out.
Yeah.
So the -1 from beating Beyond Eyes was very quickly canceled out by the +1 from picking up Tunic, which I'm also at 0. Goose egg. But
There you
that
go.
being said, that's all I've been playing lately. Which is a lot, but yeah. So it's time, friends. We were just talking about the beatdown meta. You know what's coming next. If you've been listening to the podcast for any amount of time, you know what's coming next. It's time for plugs. So we were talking about the beatdown. Obviously, what are we going to be talking about next? We're going to be talking about GG, the official app of the Backlog Beatdown. It's a letterbox style app for your video game collection. Built and designed by our friend Charles Watson. And there's a few things in there, like, really fairly standard, I guess, kind of like things, but you can do custom lists. You can rate review games. Uh, you can see what your friends are playing. You can follow Josh. You can follow me on there. You can follow lots of different people. And you can see what they're playing. You can sort of see what's trending. It's got a decent little sort of like social ish kind of toolbar thing in there. And if you like what you see, like, and you can check that out for free 99 for $0. You can check this app out. You can sign up, get yourself an account. And if you like what you see, for $5 a month or $50 a year, you can get access to the elite tier, which, for the most part, is just a little bit more access to Charles. You can, like, he gets a lot of input from the elite tier people. Like, he says, like, hey,
Mm.
what should I prioritize? And when he's like, you'll actually get, you can sort of beta test for him. You can be part of like the early builds. You can sort of have access to that. And so check it out. We really like the app. We really like Charles, and we think it's worth at least some time and attention. Other things that
Yeah.
you can throw money at. It's us. We have a Patreon, like almost every other podcast on the face of the planet. Unlike most other podcasts on the face of this planet, we're not going to come to you and say money please. I mean, we will, but we'll do it ironically and because it's hysterical, but not literally. We actually just want you to think of it as a bit of a tip jar, but
Mm.
it's a tip jar with benefits. So each of our patrons gets basically access to the Brohang, which is a patron exclusive podcast. They get early and uncut access to each and every episode alongside a video feed. They also get a special role in our Discord server, and in addition to like the Patreon, they just have a little bit more access to us in general.
Mm-hmm.
We are running some events, like we've got a book club of event, or a backlog draft event, sort of kicking off here in the next couple of weeks. And while everybody in the server and anybody listening to the podcast can participate in that, only our patrons will be on for that particular episode.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. One of the other things that our patrons get to do is they every year they can pick a game or a topic for us to discuss or to play, and they can hop on the mics and join us to talk about that aforementioned game or topic. But yeah, and we really like those guys, and yeah, so
That's right. And speaking of our patrons, we just want to give a quick shout out before we move on here. So our patrons include Micah Gear Solid, Wes the Henshin Dad, Paul the Techno Funk Boy, Trash Turkey, Dorian. All your basement belong to us, I believe. is how we finish that out. The Judge, which is Eric Bryant. Big Chill, Alex, you're the man. Porcho, who has his own podcast, which we will get to in just a second. Spike with the alternate, love that. And now 11 and a half minutes to talk about Mark and Isaac the Wanderer, the Sojourner himself, who is actually only a few hours away from me, which is kind of cool. Cool, because Iowa weather is very cold right now. Oh, sorry, dad joke. But along with our patrons, and you know, speaking of Wes and Paul, who's in there, and also Nick, they have podcasts that we dig. And we actually came together. We made a little network, the Playwell Network, that we are all a part of, where we just like to go a little bit deeper in our entertainment, not just for entertainment's sake, but to see some of the best stuff that we can pull out. So whether it's video games, whether it's live. Sorry, I'm trying to think of the right term.
Actual play.
Actual play, man. I don't know what it is. The microphone's making
Well,
me
dude,
dumb.
I think the thing is, like, because I did it for so long that it eventually remembered it.
You know. Yeah, actual play podcast that Paul does. Wes has his Retronym podcast where he talks about video games, or he'll talk about some other stuff like Doctor Who and things like that. And then Nick has Nothing New Under the Porch, where he talks about video games and, once again, other things that are going on in his life or other things to talk about. So we really love those guys. Check it out at theplaywellnetwork.com, or hear a word from one of them right now. Cool. I think that was sort of stumbled through some of that.
Yeah, I mean, and we don't have to do the shout out to the patrons every time, but I figured when we do, like, you know, we can switch off and on that, but I was just like, you know, that's, you mentioned just like, you know, I wasn't trying to.
No, it's good.
I should have talked to you before that and just been like, but yeah.
Sweet.
So, and I mean, I guess we could shout them out every episode, and we can just sort of switch off on that or whatever. But yeah, I mean, they're cool. They're the only ones who are going to hear this besides Parker. So